Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 6 of Birthday Boy by David Baddiel, continuing from chapter 26, It's a Deal. On the way home, Sam's parents stopped at the skate shop so they could buy him the skateboards, the last thing he needed for his secret project. It made for an odd present giving. A skateboard is quite hard to disguise in wrapping paper anyway, and the surprise element goes down with each one that emerges into the light, particularly if the person getting the skateboard has already got the same skateboard, which is sitting on the floor next to him, and has written down a request for 3 more of them. And even more particularly if that child has waited outside the skate shop while you buy them. But nonetheless, keen to show his parents he had changed, Sam stayed wide-eyed and positive and made sure to say, "Oh, thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad," after opening each one. "That's okay, Sam," said Vicky. "Yes," said Charlie. "I hope you enjoy them." "I will," said Sam, picking up all 4 skateboards, one on top of the other. "Can I go and do my thing with these now?" Charlie looked outside. It was a bright, sunny day, exactly the kind of day on which he would have loved to have gone out with his skateboard 30 years ago. "Yes, I don't see why not." Charlie said this, although a large part of him wanted to ask how exactly Sam was going to ride all on 4 skateboards. Was he going to crouch on all 4s and then try to steer them down the pavement a bit like an enormous beetle? That didn't sound very safe. He thought he'd better stay with him and check. So he followed Sam out of the living room and into the hallway. Charlie opened the front door for him, in fact, and then he stood there watching as Sam walked past him down the corridor to his bedroom. 10 seconds later, the hammering started again. Vicky appeared, looking down the hall, followed closely by Ruby, also looking down the hall. Charlie turned to his daughter. "Ruby," he said, "can you find out what on earth he's doing in there?" Ruby looked back at him. "Will you give me more pocket money?" Vicky shook her head. "I don't think we can, love. We're really struggling to pay the bills because of Sam's birthdays." Charlie made a face, meaning, "Yes, we are. But," he said, "the minute everything feels like we're not struggling so much anymore, we'll buy you a—" "Kitten?" said Ruby. "Well," said Vicky. Said Charlie. "Great," said Ruby. "Thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad. It's a deal." And she ran towards Sam's room. Charlie looked at Vicky. "I was going to say new dress," he said. Vicky nodded. "Too late now," she said. Chapter 27, Don't Look Now. Ruby decided to wait until Sam was asleep. There were a number of reasons for this. One, when she went to knock on his door, which she did straight after her dad had entrusted her with this mission, he didn't, like last time, get all grumpy with her and refuse to let her in for ages, but she did have to wait until he finished hammering. Then, when there was a moment's silence from inside as she knocked, her brother shouted, "Hold on, just a minute," followed by a lot of rustling. Ruby, being a very clever 8-year-old, knew this meant that he would be hiding whatever it was he was making, and indeed when Sam opened the door, the middle of the floor was covered by his duvet, which frankly was a bit of a giveaway, but she pretended she hadn't noticed, and had just come to feed Spock. It felt more exciting and secret agenty to creep in when he was asleep. So that evening, she let her mum and dad say goodnight and kiss her gently on the forehead. She closed her eyes and allowed them to think she'd gone to sleep really quickly. And then she whispered for nearly an hour to her monkeys. Ruby had a collection of very cuddly monkeys, all of whom had different names and different voices, who lived with her on her bed, in order to keep herself awake until she heard this conversation. "Night, Mum. Night, Dad. Should we come and tuck you in?" "No, Mum, I'm fine." Which was, in fact, the conversation Sam had been having with his parents just before he went to bed for the last couple of nights. And then she listened for the sound of Sam doing something else he'd been doing for the last couple of nights, which was locking his bedroom door. Except tonight, there was no sound of that, because when Ruby had gone into his room earlier in order to feed Spock, she'd hidden his key under some hay in the cage. I mentioned that Ruby was a very clever 7, now 8-year-old, right? Then she whispered to her monkeys for 5 minutes longer, to be sure that Sam would be asleep. Then she crept out of the room, tiptoed carefully past the living room, where her parents were watching TV, and gently opened the door to her brother's room. So, what was she expecting? What she was expecting was to be able to easily see what Sam was building, because the duvet that was covering it would no longer be covering it. It would be on top of Sam. But it was still covering whatever the thing Sam was building. It was also covering Sam, because Sam was sleeping under his duvet, but also on top of the thing that was still in the middle of the floor. Ruby knelt down. Her brother's face was calm and quiet. He was wearing his space pyjamas. She went over to where his feet were and very gently lifted up the duvet. Underneath was what appeared to be a platform. Sam had hammered together with the 6 planks of wood, securing them across the coils of rope. In the coils of rope on either side, he had put each of the 2 brooms. She looked further down. Underneath the platform, nailed to the underside, were the skateboards, one beneath each other. Ruby frowned. This was very confusing. In her secret agent persona, she wanted to report back to her boss, her dad, but at the moment she still didn't know what Sam was trying to make here. She heard a noise, It was Spock, scrabbling to the edge of the cage bars. She looked over at him. He looked over at her with quite a strong sense of, next time you want to hide something in my hay, I'd like a request in writing if you don't mind. And also, with quite a strong sense of, and this wasn't reading too much into a guinea pig's face, as the guinea pig in question was raising its face towards him, as if to make this clear. Don't look now, but Sam's woken up. Chapter 28. Like a Superhero. So, said Sam, what is it that is so interesting about my feet, that you can't wait until tomorrow morning to look at them? Said Ruby, touching his right foot. Well, this one is kind of ugly, but this one, touching his left foot, is almost pretty. As far as feet can be. She looked up. Unusual for 2 feet from the same person to be so different. Okay. And meanwhile, what are you lying on? Oh, so that's what this is all about. Yes. Are you in the pay of Mum and Dad? Well, if I can find out what you're up to, they've promised at some point to buy me a kitten. So yes, basically. Yes. Okay, I can't tell you. Why not? Because they'll stop me from doing what I need to do with it. What do you need to do with it? Sam sighed. He threw off the duvet, stood up, and then walked over to the window and looked out. He put a finger to his lips, and with his other hand gestured to her to come over. She got up and walked towards him. Sam pointed outside. Look, he said. Ruby stood on tiptoe. I can't really see out of the window, she said. Sam looked at her. He nodded. He went over to the other side of his bed platform, knelt down and pushed. On its 4 skateboards, it wheeled over to the window. Stand on that, he said. So she did. It gave her just the right amount of height to see clearly out of the window. From here, the 17th floor, the lights of the city were glittering all around. Now look, he said, pointing again. She followed the direction of his finger, scrunching up her eyes. What am I looking for? On the river. That island. She scrunched up her eyes even more. I still can't see. Hold on, said Sam. Try this. She unscrunched her eyes. Standing behind her, Sam was now holding something out in front of her face. What is it? Asked Ruby, pulling back. It's my new invention, said Sam with a hint of pride. The binioscope. Ruby looked at what he was holding in front of her eyes. It was Sam's binoculars. These, you may remember, had got broken, but the lenses and the bit you look through were still fine. Sam had attached these to the second half of the telescope tube, the part with the strong lens on the end. It looked like this. Oh, right, said Ruby. That's clever. And she put her eyes against the binioscope. It was clever, because suddenly she could see, all the way down towards the river and the little island in the middle of it. She could see the water around it, the reflection of the lights on the surface and the trees that seemed to cover every millimetre of the bank. That seemed to be all. But then, in the middle of the trees, she saw it. A light. It flashed, or rather glowed, brightly, once, and then vanished. There was something beautiful about it, thought Ruby. Something magical. What is it? A star, said Sam. Ruby took her eyes off the binioscope and looked at her brother doubtfully. A star? Why isn't it in the sky? She said. It fell out. Fell out? I'm really not sure that happens. I saw it. And they do vanish from the sky sometimes. Yes, it's called a supernova, actually. They explode. They don't fall out. I saw it, Ruby. I know you know lots about stars and astrology. Astronomy? That too. But I promise you, I saw it. Ruby looked out at the sky. She nodded. One of the things she had learnt through reading a lot about stars and astronomy, is that there are many things about the universe that remain unknowable. Okay, I believe you, Sam. When did you see it? The night of my birthday. You know, when I wished my birthday could be every day, which, and now Sam looked out of the window, is what I don't want anymore. You don't, said Ruby. No. Why? Because I just want to look for Grandpa Sam, and Mum and Dad are spending so much time and money on my birthday that it's getting in the way of finding him. He paused. It's getting in the way, so I'm going to make it stop. He looked at his sister very intensely and said, also very intensely, like he was a superhero who had finally worked out how to save the world, I'm going to unwish my wish. Chapter 29. Skateboat. Ruby frowned. Maybe your wish was nothing to do with the star, though, which brought Sam down to earth a bit. Now it was his turn to frown. What do you mean? Well, maybe it just fell out of the sky because, I don't know, it bumped into another star or an asteroid, or maybe Zeus pulled it out. Zeus doesn't exist. I'd have thought you'd be the first to point that out. Well, neither do stars that live on islands, actually. Look, said Sam, all I know is that I saw a star. I wished my birthday was every day. The star fell out of the sky, and then everyone started behaving as if it was my birthday every day. Even you. Ruby nodded. I did, she said, actually. Sam looked out of the window, and now there's a light shining on that island, which was right underneath where the star fell out of the sky. So I've got a plan to go there, to get to that island, and wish on that star again, to make my birthday not be every day." "Right," said Ruby. "I see. And so your plan is?" Sam continued to look out of the window. Then he turned and looked at her. "That thing you're standing on, that I was sleeping on, that I've built, with stuff from my birthday list." "Yes. It's a boat. Or it will be." Ruby looked down at the platform. She got off it. She examined it. "What are the skateboards for?" Sam looked at her as if it was obvious. "So that I can slide it down to the river. It's a skateboard come boat. A skateboard." And even though Ruby was a very clever 8-year-old who knew about stars and astronomy, there was a part of her that was still just an 8-year-old. And 8-year-olds sometimes just accept what they're told in a very straightforward way. Which is why she nodded and then looked up at him and said, "Can I come?" Part 4. And so say all of us. Chapter 30. Over the waves of a concrete sea. "Shh," said Sam. "I'm being as quiet as I can," whispered Ruby, "considering what we're doing here is carrying a skateboat out of your room." "Shh. Okay, right, shush it is." It's not easy, this, though, was what she wanted to say. She was a lot smaller than Sam, even though he had by now started to get back down to his normal size, and so between them they were holding the skateboat at quite a sharp downwards angle. It wasn't as heavy as she thought it was going to be, but it was awkward, not least because when she turned her head to the right or left, her ears would hit a skateboard wheel. It wasn't made any easier by the fact that Sam had said they had to bring the binoscope as well, which kept on rolling backwards and forwards on the wooden boards. "Shh," said Sam again, a bit unnecessarily, as Ruby hadn't said anything, but they were in the hallway, passing the door to the living room, where their parents were watching TV. The time was 10 p.m. Sam and Ruby had on 2 sets of clothes because it was September and starting to get cold, and they were going out into the middle of the night. As they went through the front door, Ruby whispered, "Should we leave them a note?" "Who?" "Mum and Dad, of course." "Oh," said Sam. "No, it'll be fine. They'll never even notice we're gone." They got the skateboat out of the door of their flat easily enough, not so easily into the lift. Sam had to press his body face forward against the wall, and Ruby had to crouch underneath the skateboat, which was lying diagonally over her head. "This is horrible, Sam," she shouted. "I'm too close to the toilet smell. Wee, my nose is near the wee smell." Okay, he said. "Sorry." Sam reached round for the buttons, and after some fumbling, pressed G for the ground floor. Down they went, Ruby holding her nose and indeed breath all the way. The lift opened and they crashed the skateboat through the doors of Noam Chomsky House onto the path, which curved through some sparsely planted trees, down the hill and out onto the road. Then Sam put his left foot on the skateboat, pushed with his right to get going, and immediately fell over. The skateboat went off the path and into the grass verge. "Ow," he said. "Sorry. Don't know why that happened. Let's get it and try again." And they did. And he fell off again. "Ow!" Ruby watched deadpan. "Have you, by any chance, tried riding this before? At all?" "No," said Sam, getting up. "But I thought it would be just like riding a skateboard, only bigger." "Yes, I think the only bigger thing may make quite a big difference." Don't quite know what to do," said Sam. "Hello," said a voice. They both looked around. "Oh, right," said Sam. "Hi, Zada. This is my sister, Ruby." "Hello," said Zada. "Hello," said Ruby suspiciously, for no real reason. She was just like that with new people. "So," said Zada, looking at the skateboat, "what happened to your board? Did it have an allergic reaction to something?" "Hey," said Sam. "Oh, no." "It's a long story," said Ruby, still suspicious, and not really wanting to explain to Zada what they were trying to do. "Okay," she replied, shrugging, "but I saw you fall off it. Do you want some help?" Sam looked at the skateboat, then back at her. "You think you could help me ride this board too?" Zada looked at it. "Yes." She got on the skateboat. "It's bigger, isn't it, than a normal board? So it's just a question of..." And she put her foot down firmly on the floor. "Doing everything, all your movements and your weight shifting. Bigger." The skateboat moved off towards the bowl under Noam Chomsky House. Sam and Ruby glanced at each other. Zada wasn't going to... Was she? But she did. She stuck out her arms in a flying shape and then leant towards the left. The skateboat moved, slowly at first, and then disappeared down below Noam Chomsky House. Ruby and Sam ran over to see Zada on the skateboat, gliding, not effortlessly, but getting more fluid by the second, around the bowl, up the ramp, down the ramp, around the sides, all the time holding out her arms like an old-fashioned child pretending to be an aeroplane. As she got better and better, she actually made it seem like she was on a boat, sailing over the waves of a concrete sea. "This is what you need to do," she shouted as she went. "Just place your weight more firmly and use your arms more." Then Zada pushed off again and around a curve and up towards where her little audience were watching. As a last flourish, just before she got to them, she added an Ollie 360, no pivot, lifting herself in the air and twisting round like a ballet dancer to arrive the right way round by the time the board stopped at an awestruck Sam and Ruby. "So, that is it, really? All yours," she said. Chapter 31. Brick Wall. From the top of the path, Sam held the skateboat steady with his foot. Zada had vanished almost as quickly as she'd appeared. Ruby looked at Sam doubtfully. "Do you think that was enough? Zada's lesson?" Sam didn't answer that question. He held the binorscope up to his eyes and looked down towards the river. Ruby got up onto the skateboat and stood on tiptoe, trying to see with her eyes. "Can you see it?" she said. "The star?" "Yes," said Sam, still looking through the lens. "It seems to be getting fainter, though." "Fainter?" "Yes. Maybe it's dying." He put down the binorscope. Not in a supernova explosive way, just in a kind of not where it's meant to be kind of way, like a fish out of water. This interested Ruby, and she strained even further on her tiptoes, trying to see the star. Then she noticed that someone was placing something on her head. It was Sam, and the thing was a helmet, his spare skateboard helmet. She looked up. His was already on. He smiled at her. "So, we better get going," he said. And with that he planted one foot firmly on top of the skateboat, kicked his other foot, the one on the ground, backwards, and down the hill they went. "Whoa!" went Ruby. They were going very, very fast. "Hold on," shouted Sam. "I am holding on to your leg. I still have to scream." "But it's fun, isn't it?" "It is fun, but frightening as well. Whoa! But also, yee-haw!" This was the point when they came off the path up to Noam Chomsky House and onto the street. Geary Road, and headed straight towards a brick wall. "Uh-oh," said Sam. "Brick wall, Sam!" shouted Ruby. "Brick wall!" "I know. Remember what Zada said?" "Yes, okay." He pressed his foot down to the right to turn, like he would on his normal board, but the skateboat didn't move. It carried on, heading straight at the wall. "It's not moving," shouted Sam. "More weight," shouted Ruby. "Remember how she did it." Sam pressed his foot down harder. Still nothing. The wall was centimetres away. He pressed harder again. He raised his arms in the flying pose Zada had done, and leant down, his arms going diagonal to the right, and closed his eyes, which Zada hadn't done. But then Zada didn't seem to feel fear. Sam was aware of something moving behind him, but it was too late to look around. He braced himself for the crash. And then, at the last minute, the skateboat swerved away and trundled on down the pavement. "Phew," he said. "That was lucky." "Well," said Ruby, "lucky-ish." Sam looked around. Ruby had moved to the far right edge of the skateboat and was also doing the flying arms diagonal thing. It was her weight that had made the difference. "Oh," he said, "that's clever." "Yes," said Ruby, "and don't worry, I'll shift along behind you every time we need to turn from now on." Sam smiled at her, nodding. "What a great sister you are, Ruby," he said. Ruby smiled. "I am," she said, "actually." And that is where we will leave part 6 of Birthday Boy by David Baddiel. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.